Peace International, WFWPI, an NGO in general consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. And our event today is also co-organized by the Global Development Enterprise. My name is Merle Barlan. I am the director of the WFWPI's Office for UN Relations here in New York. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our distinguished speakers for joining us this morning. Our event is also being live streamed in YouTube right now, and hello to everyone there in the virtual world. The priority theme of CSW67 is on innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. And our topic for this parallel event is creating an environment of resilience and empowerment in the digital age. As we all know, technology is rapidly advancing and spreading with access to the internet, now available to a significant portions of the world's population. While there are clear benefits to this, there are also negative impacts that must be addressed. In order to ensure that women and girls are able to capitalize upon the benefits of technology, there is a need for them to be resilient, knowledgeable, and confident in the age of rapid technological growth and innovation. It is also critically important to protect them from abuse and violence through the misuse of technology. Our speakers will take us to a deeper dive into why it is fundamentally important to be empowered with both hard technological skills and soft skills, as well as we will talk about the challenges and opportunities as more than ever, living in a digital world is becoming our reality. We hope that through the exchange of ideas and discussion of cross-cutting issues, our panel of speakers who have substantial experiences from both ends of the spectrum in the field of policy making, from the highest levels, such as the United Nations, all the way down to the hopeful projects in communities in the remote rural areas. We hope to understand these critical aspects of how a civil society, in partnership with our local and national governments and the United Nations, create an environment of resilience and empowerment and forge a way forward as scalable, actionable steps and work together as a global community. To start, I'd like to call on Carolyn Hanshin, the director of WFWPI's Offices for UN Relations, to give the opening remarks. Ms. Carolyn Hanshin is the president of the NGO CSW in Geneva, and she is also the WFWPI International Vice President. And Carolyn has led the advocacy team at the United Nations in Geneva for 26 years, active in various committees and task forces, organizing conferences and writing and speaking on issues related to rights and protection of women and girls, the role of education in peace and security, engagement of youth and family for peace building and development. She is the coordinator for Europe and Middle East for the International Association of First Ladies for Peace, and Carolyn has designed various curricula and guides the leadership and advocacy training of young women and men in the WFWPI UN internship program in Geneva. She is the co-founder and program coordinator of the GIIA Model UN Interreligious Youth Council program. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Carolyn Hanshin.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry we are not more here, but I'm sure through the live streaming and through the, the recording that we will be sending around and having access on the, even on the
recording in
NGO
progress
platform, we will have many viewers. I am not standing here, as all of you are, as an IT expert. That is not my, I always get some support for that. In fact, my young assistant should be coming through the door any minute, who is really a genius in this field. But I have, as Merle said, I have had a longish career in partnerships, I would say, with especially UN and civil society partnerships. And just as I was preparing this, some remarks to kick this off this morning, I was remembering, I live in Geneva, and I was remembering in the 90s, in the 90s, that was the time when actually the internet was really just getting started. Before that, there were, it was just being sort of used selectively, maybe for research. It was not really a communicative kind of relationship that could come through that. But I remember one of my first events that I attended at the United Nations was a lecture by Mrs. Sadako Ogata. She was the High Commissioner for Refugees at the time, this amazing Japanese woman who was talking about this new tracking system that they had. It was like really revolutionary at the time. A new tracking system for bringing lost children in displaced areas together with their parents or families. Because before that, it was really, really a tragic situation because because of emergency, natural disaster or war or famine or whatever, of course, many, many times children would, especially young children, would get displaced, separated from their parents. And there was no way for them to find their parents after that. You could ask around, but who knows how far away they had gone. And the longer it took, the further away they got. And even some didn't even, maybe they were young enough that they didn't even know what their parents looked like or could recognize them. So this was some dramatic breakthrough that came because of this new technology, which at the time was much more primitive than now, but nevertheless, it could inspire people, because that came not because of the technology, it came because of the need to really help children, especially in families in this situation. And I remember the way Mrs. Ogata spoke about this, and she was like in tears actually when she talked about it, because for her, as head of the Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees, as the High Commissioner, she could just imagine what kind of a difference this would make. And soon after that also, maybe I didn't notice it before, but now because I became so kind of open to her and what the High Commissioner, the Refugee Office, UNHCR, was doing, I noticed that she also had a kind of a poster campaign throughout Geneva. All over throughout Geneva, she had pictures of what was happening in refugee camps, and I felt like she was waking up the whole city actually to this situation of refugees, which we heard a few sentences, on the news, but no one had any idea actually what it was like for people who were really in a situation as refugees. And I thought, well, I want to write to her and I want to tell her how moved I am actually by her work, which I do that kind of thing a lot actually. And sure enough, she answered me. And she said, she invited me to her office and she said, we need that encouragement. And even I felt like, and even I said to her, it was like such a sort of a motherly way that she ran her office. And I just remember the look on her face that actually I felt like I could help her in her work, and she really appreciated being recognized for this work. And even I sort of imagined things like maybe, working among many, many men, maybe they were not always as appreciative, but I could really see something in her. And for me, this really sparked in me this point about partnership with the UN and how through civil society there is the UN, but there are relationships, and people are educable, and people are influenced, by appreciation for their work, and working together can really make a huge difference. So all of this, I'm a mother of 7 children, and they were very young at the time, in the 90s. And I remember coming back to them after being at the United Nations a few times a week, and learning all these things about the situations of people in the world that, again, I had only heard a few phrases, on the news, and coming back and looking at my own children. And it was such a profound experience. I would look at them and imagine them as refugees, or I'd take them to the swimming pool, and I would imagine all the children there as being, as this being a place where it was just filled with refugee children, and I would be in tears so often, in fact. So, and now we have things like, just even this morning I saw something on the internet about a 19-year-old young man, I believe it was a young man, who created a website to connect Ukrainian refugees with host families in other countries. So you have this kind of opportunity for creative young minds to create, not just because the technology is there, but to create with a great purposefulness and problem solving, even on global levels. Okay, thank you. And then maybe one other point I wanted to touch was in my UN office in Geneva, Women's Federation for World Peace office, we are working a lot with technology. And we have, especially, of course, since COVID, we had to, and then we realized how beneficial it was. Because, for instance, we have internship programs, human rights internship programs, where we invite all over the world, through all the youth networks, we invite young people to participate. Each time, maybe 3 times a year, we have 4 to 6 or 7 young people we usually choose someone from different continents, and they join this, and we give them the opportunity to write an academic paper, maybe 15 pages, about their most impassioned desire in their country. Street children, Dalit women, women's shelters. These are some of the issues that have come up. And then they have the opportunity to work on those with us. We guide them through, and then we send these on to the UN, to the High Commissioner for Human Rights, or to the CEDAW committee, or just so they have this sense of they're doing something that is actually contributing for the benefit of the world. And maybe in closing, I would just say that I know, as I hear from these young interns, how much it affects them in their lives, in their work, in their expectations for what they can do in their life by having had that experience to, is that time out, or is that 2 times? I got time out and time out, okay. So anyway, the sky is the limit, as we've been hearing these last few days, at the UN, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the real experts in IT, how they have been passionately and creatively applying their skills. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn, for opening up this program with your inspiring stories with Mrs. Ogata, the refugees, and the work that you do in Geneva and for Women's Federation. So the next part, I've been waiting for this and preparing for this for months. And so here we are. We are going to listen to the addresses and presentations by the experts. This segment will feature our distinguished speakers. We have here Dr. Karen Smith. She's the founder and CEO of the Global Development Enterprise. Ms. Atife Riazi, Chief Information Officer of HARST, Assistant Secretary General of Chief Information Technology Officer, OICT of the United Nations from 2013 to 2020. And Ms. Adriana Gasconi, founder and CEO of Girls in Tech, and our very young woman leader, Engineer Christine Rose Bulayo, the Regional Secretary General of Women's Federation for World Peace, Asia Pacific 1. What a wonderful, inspiring panel of speakers we have today. I'd like to introduce our first speaker Karen Smith. She's the founder, as I mentioned, of Global Development Enterprise. And also, she's the founder of the NGO Academy. And the NGO Academy provides practical guidance to leaders driving transformative social change. With 30 plus years of experience in the United Nations community and a unique blend of expertise in science and technology, interreligious dialogue, and social justice, Karen advises mentors and trains with a focus on soft power skills. Her upcoming book provides recipes for turning contentious situations and conversations into creative and meaningful opportunities for growth and progress. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Karen Smith.
I was going to get my own mic.
We can share.
So I needed to be down here so I could see what is up there because I'll be clicking away. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I know many of the people, we've kind of gotten used to Zooming. So now we're getting used to being back together again. So that's something, getting us out of our houses and out of our sequestered offices and into places where we can actually meet and associate again. It's refreshing. So looking at the status of women this year, one of the things that Secretary General Guterres just mentioned is that the patriarchy is fighting back. And he added that we are too. And in the course of this short talk, what I want to do is give a little bit of a brief insight into why that might be happening and the bigger picture of what we can do about it, but the devil, as always, is in the details. So one of the things that UN Women are really talking about in terms of tech is that tech progress is still outpacing progress in gender equality. So we've seen that. Many of us have lived through it. Your children are experiencing it online in their games and in the gaming world. And we've got experts here, Adi Riazi, who's been the CIO at the United Nations for a number of years, dealing with one or two situations she'll go into the details of some of those, but has a very unique perspective on what it means to be a woman in technology and the challenges that are being faced, both as a technologist, period, and then as a woman in technology. And I'm so honored that she could be here with us today. She's an amazing person, and she writes exceedingly well, by the way. And then we have Adriana, who is really focused on giving women the opportunities to become trained and educated in STEM. So part of the reason that got her there, and she'll tell you the details, was her own experience of being a woman in tech. It can be painful. But that pain, and perhaps the anger that goes with it, and the indignation can light a fire and get things moving. So you'll see what she's done because of that challenge, and it's amazing. But part of what the UN Women is calling for is to remove the barriers to access to the digital world for women, educating and training women and girls in STEM, enabling women to create tech that meets their needs, and eliminating online gender-based violence. They're the four things that UN Women are calling for as kind of thematic for this year's CSW. And I would like to say that in some way, I think you'll see those conversations will be played out right here this morning. So that's, you'll see those threads in the conversation. What I want to bring your attention to at the moment, that I think that there's also one thing that's, generally speaking, we're missing in our conversations. You know, human beings are a little bit like fish. Sorry, I keep coming. You know, I keep talking about fish today. But anyway, I did spend 10 years fishing and doing things. But anyway, we're a bit like fish, because fish in water don't know that they're in water. Humans, most of the time, we don't realize that we're totally immersed in relationships. The way we look at things, the way we deal with one another, the assumptions that we make, and how we're communicating with the other based on what we think we're looking at, what we feel we're looking at, hearing, experiencing. But we're missing something, I believe, in our conversations and in our education and training. And so that's where it comes in the little bit of talk about soft power and, I said being real, tech progress is outpacing all social progress, and that's kind of the next step. But the piece that we're kind of missing is the how to be good human beings. And I want to give you a little bit of an insight as to why I think some of that happens. We can't go into the depth of it, but one of the consequences that gender equality is just one of the social issues, of the bigger issue that is being faced today because of the pace of the growth of technology. It's growing so fast. And our traditional structures, our social systems, our hierarchical, mature organizations, not mentioning any names while we're talking about the UN here, but those institutions don't change as fast as technology is changing, and there are consequences for that. That's why we end up with this huge and growing, what I call gray zone. There's an ethical gray zone where any actor who's got the drive to jump into that, there's not even the legal framework for adequately dealing with the problems of online crime, transnational organized crime, trafficking driven by the technology that enables us. So there's this huge gray area that we are not good at. We're not even good at having a hard discussion with the ones we love. We're not good at it. I know. And maybe I came to this realization a little bit late, but probably the last 10 years I've really been focusing a lot more on this area and arena. Because I had some experiences where I realized I didn't see certain things coming. I thought I was fairly smart. I thought I was quite capable. I thought I was decent at communicating. But in fact, I discovered, And it's taken me time. Let's put it this way. So, just quickly, one of the things that's important to understand about human beings, we are actually wired to use tools. Rocks, hammers, swords, bows and arrows, iPhones, and every other mobile device. We live with them. They become an extension of us. We walk down the street. We are wired, when you lose your phone, you set it aside, you feel that something's lost because that's part of it becomes part of your identity. It's the way our brains work. Now, even the organizations that are structured to be learning organizations, and not all organizations are, still take more time than a human being does to adapt to a tool. Because the adoption process is one of those pre-rational things. We don't plan it out, we just do it. It's pre-rational, it's fast. And so that's what comes back to the discussion of thinking fast and thinking slow. We've got two components of who we are primarily that happen very fast, and they're pre-rational, they're not in our cognitive functioning, and the reasoning stuff that we think about and think we know, that is slow. So that's part of why even here, our adoption of the technology as individuals is very, very fast, relatively speaking. the rational, strategic planning for changing an organization's structure and how it works takes time. This is the gap. We see it everywhere, and gender, the issue of gender is way, way, way one of those social issues. The other thing I just wanted to show you that it's going to get faster and more and probably a little worse, but sorry, it's me, Australian, hit you on the nose with the truth type of stuff. Moore's law sped up the pace. Every 2 years, the chip gets gets twice as much information on it. We get twice as much information. We're in the sea of information. That eased off. We're now just at this point where we're going public with AI. There's lots of stuff, and there are ways, and I want to offer the opportunity later on, for NGOs to get an introduction to how we can use AI for good purposes and to become more aware of it in our world. Awareness is an important piece of it. And then down the road, we're going to end up with quantum computing and things, which is going to take everything a whole nother boost, a whole nother curve of speed and pace of change. So we just need to keep this in mind. Our social relationships and our systems, that is slow. It takes time to build a relationship. It takes time to build trust. It takes time. It's really quick to go to Google, and then we think we know it, but we don't. This is the reality. This is the reality of all of us. So I just want to make sure that everybody minds this gap, okay? This is the gap that we really need to pay attention to. And so why we focus on partnerships and equipping women and girls in technology with resilience, discernment, and protection from digital dangers. That's the learning part that we need in order to be able to live well in that gray zone and to thrive, not just to become a victim of the consequences. And I don't have time to go over why the human element is at play, but this is the reality of your brain, that thing in there. You've got your survival component, you've got your social emotional component, and you've got your neocortical rational component. Three broad strokes, functions of the human being. But it's important to understand and know that this is who we are. So when you look at a person, think about it for a moment. Are you speaking to the lizard in them? Are you speaking to the social emotional person? If so, which emotion? There are hundreds of emotions, not just sad, mad, glad. And then there's the strategic part. Are we just analyzing things and thinking about things and making our decision process there? This is all going on. So what I'm calling for is to add to STEM that we have something, and I don't know whether CERN is a good name, accepting that that's the European Council for, nuclear research, and so it sounds good. But we need to have the other area of the soft skills. It takes time to learn. If it takes time to learn how to code, if it takes time to learn how to set up a system so that we can Zoom somewhere else as well as here, we also need to put the time and the energy into learning how to communicate better. I've gone way over time. So CERN is communication, emotional intelligence, resilience, and negotiation. And there are ways to build these. But it takes effort, energy, and training. So this is where I would recommend that we increasingly add attention. These are the soft skills, considered the soft skills. But they're the hard ones to deal with. But these are the power skills that we really need as we move on through into the next age. Anyway, I'm just going to leave this with 67. I only realized yesterday, but 67 is a prime number. And when I asked the AI, could you describe prime numbers, the AI said something like amazing and mysterious. So today, as we live through CSW67, and you ladies and the gentlemen who know the value of the ladies. You're amazing and mysterious. The world is still a mystery to us all. But thank you very much for your time, and I blew out the timekeeper.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your amazing, deeply enlightening, powerful presentation. I could listen to you all day, but we have a constraint of time. But we do have a roundtable discussion, right? So that's another opportunity. So our next speaker is Ms. Atife Riazi, the Chief Information Officer of Hearst, and she is also the Assistant Secretary General and Chief Information Technology Officer, OICT, of the UN from 2013 to 2020. Atife Riazi has a wealth of experience in the private and public sectors, serving as the United Nations Assistant Secretary General and CITO. She managed a global team of 4,000 and oversaw all ICT activities, including those related to peacekeeping operations. Riazi also held senior leadership positions at NYC's Housing Authority and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where she led digital transformation efforts. As founder and director of CIOs Without Borders, an NGO addressing global social issues, she maintains a strong focus on pivotal issues. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Atife Riazi.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, for those of you who are connecting remotely. So it's, first of all, I'm really privileged to be here, and it's wonderful to be sharing it with this amazing panel. I could listen to everyone, especially Karen, you, for hours as well. So next time we need the whole day here. There's so much to talk about here, but I want to start with a story. You know, everyone asks me, they say, well, how did you end up in tech? My parents are writers, father's a philosopher. I always thought I'd be a philosopher. But when I was a kid, as a young girl growing up in Tehran, in Iran, you know, I always got this, you know, dolls and cooking stuff. And my brother got all this cool stuff with trucks. And one day he gets a watch. And I'm like envious of this watch. I want a watch. So when he's sleeping, I take his watch. I dig a hole and I plant it. And the next day, he's looking for the watch. There's no watch. And I water this watch. I must have been 4 years old. I'm like, I want a watch. Keep watering this. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by. No watch, nothing coming out. And so I go and I dig it out and I open it up. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make one. It's not growing. I'm going to make one. So I open it up and I look at the gears. I'm like, I'm mesmerized by this, thinking, how does this work? I'm curious about it. From that day on, I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to see, how does the world run? How does the world work? And I wanted to be an engineer because I couldn't, because everyone told the girls, you're going to be a nurse or a teacher. We are, you know, and nurses and teachers are great jobs. And they told my brother he's going to be an engineer. And I said, well, why can't I be an engineer? So I became an engineer. That was the main reason. I think I'm still a philosopher at heart, but I liked watches. So there's so many, I want to talk about what Karen said. She said we are immense in relationship. We are immense in pressures. As a girl growing up in the world, we have so many pressures on us. The pressure of who are we, right? The first thing we do in much of the world is cover your body. You don't have a body as a woman. Cover it. Second is we don't have a voice, right? Listen, speak less, don't talk till you're talked to. And if someone talks to you, agree, be nice, be flexible, right? Just think about it. We take away a woman's body, we take a woman's voice, right? We tell them to agree. Don't argue back, right? These are the messages we give them constantly. What else do we tell them? Duty over desire. That is a big message. We do it even in the Western world, right? You got to care your parents, you got to care your kids, you got to care your family. What you want to be is secondary, right? So all of these messages we give within a family. Then they go to school, and they get pressures. You want to be an engineer? You want to study math? Well, maybe you want to do something like this, right? Those pressures are even here. You look at geek mythology. If you look at media, how are the IT people portrayed? Look at the women in IT or men in IT. We are portrayed as geeks. So when I talk to my two 15-year-olds and I say, you know what, it'd be good if you study computer science, they're like, oh, no, Mom, I don't want to be a nerd. I don't want to be like you. I'm like, you're lucky if you're a nerd. You want to be like me. But just think about the pressures. It's such an important point. All the pressures, the relationships we have, and then we put them in a work environment which is not conducive. COVID did something. COVID was tragic for the world, but it did a couple of things. It allowed for hybrid workforce, which allows for more women to stay within workforce. Because today, what percentage of women come into tech? 20%. When I went to college, we had more. Today, 20%, less than 20%. But not all stay. They leave. Why is that? So I think we have the work environment, the family environment, media, social pressure, all of that not letting women get into the tech. Now, tech, there is a huge acceleration in tech. We can't keep up. But the sector is lopsided. It's lopsided because right now, if you're 20% of the contributor to innovation, 20%. 80% of us are consumers of tech. But tech is changing the world. It has broad impact on social issues, economic issues, financial issues. We care about those issues, don't we? But we don't have a voice. We don't have a voice because we keep thinking of what we learned as a kid. Don't speak up, don't get it, sit in the back, be agreeable. And isn't that what we're doing right now? We're agreeable. Are we advocating for big policy changes around e-waste, which impacts lots of women? Lots of women and children. Are we advocating for this huge shift of human trafficking? 70% women. 41 million people trafficked. 70% are our daughters, our sisters, women in a dark web. Less than 1% of these guys are caught. How do we stop that? You think about identity theft. You think about social media impact on children. How do we stop that? You think about artificial intelligence. It has broad implications for us, broad implications on a social issue. Things we care about. Technology has immense power. Again, we saw it with COVID. We talked about refugees, right? Now you can have healthcare and education remotely. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're a girl and you can't go to school, guess what? You can get education at home. Broad implications. Issues that we care about. But we have opted out. And that is a serious problem. We've opted out because we say the space is not cool. Our girls say it's not cool, and we're just let them go with it. That's not acceptable. The media represents the women in tech as geeks. That's not acceptable. We have no circular economy around electronic waste, and we continue to pollute the environment. Not acceptable. Women are being trafficked in a dark web. No one takes responsibility over it. Not acceptable. AI is going to result in major unemployment. Right now, we have 50% unemployment of youth globally. Those are our children. What jobs would they get? Farming, manufacturing, transportation, military, agriculture. Those jobs are being modernized. Are they going to get reskilled, retooled? What's going to happen when they don't have jobs? Well, you get radicalism. You get conservatism. Policies will change. Political views will change. Conservatism will begin to start. Do we care about those issues? Yes. Is our voice heard? Are we engaged? No, we're not engaged. We continue to consume technology. So my message really is for women, because we have a lot of meetings where we talk about role of women in tech. We go back and nothing changes. Nothing has changed in 20, 30 years. That is not acceptable. So how do we make a change? Because if we don't make a change, this industry continues to be lopsided, and we don't think about unintended consequences of technology, long term, not short term. It's not like the hiss of Titanic. It takes a long time. If we don't think about it, if we're not engaged, we're not at the table, then we deserve what we get. So that responsibility lies with us as women, with our partners and husbands as our partners, with our children as our daughters and our sons, with our parents as fathers and mothers, with our teachers, with our governments, with the private sector. So that's what I am passionate about. And I'm being given the 1-minute warning by the beautiful lady here. And I think we can do a lot in that space. We should do a lot in that space. But it starts from raising our children differently, from sending the messages, the right messages to them. You know, 20th century, I would end with this, was an incredible century. We had 2 world wars, we had a Cold War, we sent a man to the moon, we had Elvis. But the most important thing about 20th century was the internet. We created the internet. It changed so many things in the world. Now we are at the 4th revolution, the 4th revolution where the quantum computing we talked about, 3D printing, AI, all of those, cloud, all coming together to create the 4th revolution. The 4th revolution with artificial intelligence is going to change humans. You know, if you look at technology as a living species, we can't look at it as a tool anymore. It's not a tool. It's really super smart, much smarter than our species. And we are a species. And if you think about Darwin and evolution and co-evolution of species coming together, we are going to come together, just like the cell phone would be part of me, through a convergence. We call it the singularity, human machine, silicon carbon. We are lucky if we come together in singularity as human and machine. But if one starts cheating with the other, which we see in evolution, one starts to be inferior to the other, which we can see because we're definitely not as smart as the algorithms we are building and writing, then what happens to human race? These are big issues for conversation. Why aren't women engaged in that conversation? So I leave it with that. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ms. Riazi. Such an empowering message, and listening to your story as a little girl planting a watch and watching it to make it grow. I think, you know, if I was a little girl, and I think out there, whoever little girls are listening, they would want to be an engineer like you, and for that, how you walk and trailblaze that path. And so it's such an inspiring one, and I think, you know, to have a trailblazer in front of us is empowering and inspiring young women to become engineers and to be the key major role players in the world of digital technology. Thank you. Okay, for our next speaker, we have Mrs. Adriana Gascoigne. I hope Gascoignes. Thank you. Adriana is the founder and CEO of Girls in Tech and serves on WAPPP and Harvard Kennedy School's Women in Public Policy program, board and authored Tech Boss Lady. Her experiences with discrimination as the sole female executive in a Silicon Valley startup propelled her to create GIT. With 50 global chapters and 130,000 members, she's worked with many growing brands such as High Five and Indiegogo, and earned awards like the Singularity University Impact Fellow Scholarship, and was named among CNET's top 20 influential Latinos in tech. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ms. Adriana Gascon.
So it's really, really nice to be here. It's actually an honor to be here because I'm usually surrounded by tech folk, and it's great to see so many people that want to change the world and make an impact in so many different ways. So thank you so much. It's great to be here in New York with you all. So just to start off, as she said, I am the founder and CEO of Girls in Tech. And I started the organization in San Francisco in 2007 because I was one of a startup with 35 employees and the only female and the only person of color. So I'd walk into work every day and look around the room and just say, you know, there's obviously something wrong with the makeup of the employee population. It was literally, everyone was 25 to 35-year-old males that would wear hoodies, you know, the typical bro grammar. And I, one, didn't feel comfortable with that environment, but most importantly, didn't feel that I felt like we were doing a disservice to our users. You know, we had a diversity of users from all different walks of life, ages, geographies, and you can't build good products and services if you don't have diverse teams, problem solving. So that was my foray into the tech industry. I come from a background of brand marketing and product marketing, but moving to San Francisco in 2005, I experienced this disparity firsthand and wanted to create a change. So Girls in Tech was born. So Girls in Tech is a global force delivering local education and opportunities for women, a global nonprofit organization with one simple dream. And that is to eliminate the gender gap in technology. We work to empower and upskill women and other minorities in the tech industry by delivering groundbreaking educational programs and resources. Our work also consists of companies in developing more inclusive work environments that cater to women and minorities. And as was mentioned by Karen earlier, we're now in 50 cities globally, in 42 countries across 6 continents with over 130,000 active members. And I will throw out there that our focus, even though we're called Girls in Tech, that's the brand name, we are focused on university students to mid-level career women. So really sort of the 18 to 45 range. And one of the major differentiators of Girls in Tech is that we're focused on all different professions within the STEM umbrella. So it's not just computer scientists and technical women, even though that makes up about 35% of our member base. We do focus on designers, product developers, salespeople, PR, marketing, you name it. We are an inclusive organization for all women within the tech space. So we need to provide education to women on a greater scale. Technology is about evolution, and for that we need diversity. But our current tech industry isn't representative of society. So to throw out a couple of stats here, only 3% of women in the tech industry identify as Black, and this is a US-based stat. Only 1.7% of women in tech identify as Hispanic. Women only represent 33% of the workforce at large tech companies, according to Deloitte. And 50% of women in tech leave their job before the age of 35. McKinsey research shows that 37% of entry-level tech jobs are filled by women, but this number drops significantly for senior-level management roles, 25%, and executive roles, 15%. And actually, last year, we did a study with McKinsey and Company focusing on the disparity of women going into mid-level management roles, because it's a crazy 42% of women climbing up the ladder that leave the workforce. And we thought it was because of toxic work environments or they didn't want to manage a team, being discriminated in the workforce. It was because of the lack of raises and the lack of promotions. So acknowledgement from their managers, from the directors, that they deserve that raise, that they deserve that promotion. So again, it's not only Girls in Tech who believes that we need to provide greater access to STEM education for women. Fei Li, who's a Sequoia professor of computer science and Stanford University, said, "If we don't get women and people of color at the table, real technologists doing the real work, we will bias systems. Trying to reverse that a decade or two from now will be much more difficult, if not close to impossible. This is the time to get women and diverse voices in so that we can build it properly." Diversity of product development. So why is this so important? With tech being a more high-paying field than others, more men than women in these types of roles exacerbates the gender pay gap. Gender bias can show up in technologies being developed. And tech talent is in demand. According to the US Labor Department, STEM occupations are projected to grow more than twice as fast as the total for all occupations in the next decade. So why is education important? Education, obviously, not just for skill building and for learning and growing in your role, but it equips women with the technical skills needed to succeed in their careers in tech, and it builds confidence. We were talking about IQ and EQ and the difference there, and why it's so important to build up these social skills. The confidence that women need, specifically at an earlier age, which I'll talk about in a second, is so crucial to their success in not only building their careers in tech, but also being able to build their socioeconomic foundations and live and thrive in a great work environment. So here's some key statistics. Girls make decisions about their interest and participation in STEM as early as age 4. So they're exposed to things like media and games. Someone was mentioning that earlier. Obviously, their parents and their teachers, their science fairs. I mean, as early as 4. So there's a cool product called Goldie Blocks. Have any of you heard of it? It's a friend from Stanford actually created, an engineer. And it basically is like a kit of sorts to help girls think like engineers. So they build things, they build small things, medium-sized things, big trucks, things like that. And it's a really cool concept because it's fun. And there's a community as well online so they can connect with other nerds. Girls often gain interest in STEM subjects at age 11 and lose it by age 15. So those role models and those teachers and the parents are crucial in helping expose girls to opportunities in STEM, not to mention the media. The media is very responsible for exposing girls to opportunities and not making it so that it's not cool to be in tech. They should want to discover more about the industry and gaming and careers, etc. And research shows that both parents and teachers underestimate girls' math abilities and believe girls need to work harder to get the same results as boys. So there's a lot of research and studies going on right now about girls excelling in math and translating those skills to data science. At Stanford, more than 50% of the data science majors are women. And at IBM, they're hiring more female data scientists than men. So we're making really, really good headway there. And you can see some of the statistics here. Worldwide, only 30% of tech science and technology professionals are women. Only 10% of mainstream tech education is comprised of women. And 30% of women over 35 are still in junior tech positions compared to just 5% of men, despite software competency. So some of the key barriers to entry for women in tech, you could see right here, this is the woman who created the Hubble telescope. And it's funny that, you know, we decided to include this quote or found this quote because I experienced something very similar with my guidance counselor in high school, almost to the T. She just said, don't even think about applying to technical schools because you're horrible in math and you won't do well. But she said, I still remember asking my high school guidance teacher to take a second year of algebra instead of a 5th year of Latin. She looked down at her nose and at me and sneered. What lady would take mathematics instead of Latin? So this was Nancy Grace Roman, who's a prolific astronomer and mother of the Hubble telescope. So some of the key barriers to tech roles may be seen as more masculine, gender bias in the workplace, social expectations to raise a family and the work-life balance issues women are subjected to as primary caregivers, lack of female role models in tech. All of these are still barriers. Girls in Tech works not only directly with women to empower and engage and encourage them to develop themselves professionally, but also with organizations and companies that need advice on how to support the development of women in tech. And this is the last slide, but I think it's important to note all of the great things that Girls in Tech is doing in the 50 cities where we have chapters around the world. We have the Girls in Tech Conference, which is a premier conference bringing thousands of women from all over the world to listen to very accomplished leaders, speak about their stories, how they climbed up the ladder, trials and tribulations, best practices, skills that they've built throughout their career. The Girls in Tech Digital Career Fair, which is really fun, and this is where 500 students get to come and connect with companies that are hiring through virtual via IM chat or video chat. And the Girls in Tech boot camps where we teach technical skills, but also things like design, like UX design, design thinking. One of the most popular is Python coding in AI, machine learning, data science, and web development. Our mentorship program, which is a 3-month-long program that we teach globally, and we connect mentors with mentees so that they can help get a lot of questions answered about their careers and grow in their careers. Our Startup Challenge, which is a business pitch competition for women, and we provide capital for female founders that are the first, second, and third prize winners. And our virtual hackathons, I think this is important to note here because a lot of what we were discussing was development of technology, creation of technology for social good. And our hackathons actually do that. So we had a virtual hackathon specifically to help the refugees in Ukraine. We also had one to create technologies for autistic people, and then also one recently that we had for those that are hard of hearing. So we really, really care about the communities we offer. We want to make sure we bring together the best developers and designers to create technical solutions around the world. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Adriana. As always, the stories and the experiences of our panel of speakers are truly inspiring and empowering and compelling narrative for many of young ladies who are still exploring what they want to do in the future, and that is such a positive influence. Creation of technology for social good is something that hits our hearts, right? Okay, so thank you. Our next speaker, she is an upcoming emerging young leader. She is the Regional Secretary General for WFWP Asia Pacific 1. She is a computer engineer and is a senior high and college instructor. She's now the co-project manager of the Permaculture Literacy Program and is serving as the Governor General of the 10,000 Heroes United, a youth implementing arm of WFWP that focuses on climate action initiatives and raising peace-loving global leaders. She had joined the leadership training in Korea and various places in the Philippines, and she is a youth, environment, and pure love advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Ms. Christine Rose Bulayo.
Thank you so much. Good day, everyone. So, I am really honored to be speaking here in front of you. Compared to these wonderful ladies, I am still on the start of my journey, and what I'm going to share to you today is something that I've been passionate about as a young people. So, let me start with a story. Long time ago, there was a woman facing a computer. She was nervous, sweating. She was frantically typing the keyboard, trying to solve her first programming exam. And then she heard the voice of her instructor saying, "If you found programming hard, it's better to drop out now and start planting root crops." So what did that woman felt at that time? So honestly, she was tempted to give up, but she didn't. For more than 6 years, she's standing here now in front of you, talking to you. um, Now she's a computer engineer. She is also cultivating a hectare of land. Planting not just root crops, but vegetables and different kinds of herbs and fruit and non-bearing fruit trees. So, who said that one must choose between the two, right? But we can do both. So I did both. I am Christine, I'm a computer engineer, and I am an aspiring farmer. And I am a woman. Yes. So, as you can see, this is a sample programming code. So I'm trying to show them all to you to explain what I've gone through. So this code is just simple. It runs prime numbers from range 1 to 100. And this is the code that you got, right? So imagine doing this for 5 years in college. But my point is, I wanted to highlight what programming language and the natural world have. And that is language, right? So the natural world speaks more than 7,000 languages, and there are more than 8,000 programming languages. And both languages are meant to convey a message that should be understood and to be processed by the receiver. But the only difference is that in programming, the receiver is a computer, which process information faster than human beings. But human beings still have the authority and the control to feed what kind of information it wants the computer to learn. So the authority still is in the human beings. So the solutions to the issues that we have now still boils down from us human beings. So that's why I wanted to share to you something that we did back home. So I call it, it's not faith in technology, but it is faith in people. Because the real problem is not whether machines think, but whether people do. So I want to highlight some technology that we use in our own community. So For us, we did this in order for us to integrate digital technology to our very own project. And our purpose is to create a safe, green, and digital environment wherein men and women can equally participate. So our permaculture literacy program, in its essence, is not just an agricultural lifestyle or agricultural thing. It's more on living every day, living with nature, knowing nature, working with nature, but integrating the use of digital technology. So here are some technologies that we used in permaculture. So we are utilizing this digital technology to achieve productivity, safety, and positivity for the benefit of both the environment and humanity. So these various technological tools allow us to perform our task efficiently. So among this software, I wanted to introduce to you this one. So this enables us to identify the sand path diagram as well as the topography of the land, which is really very helpful, especially in designing larger areas of land. And we also have this shadow study. So this shows which part will get sunlight more, which part will get the shadow. So it is very important on designing and plotting all your vegetables and trees on your land. Imagining having a 1 hectare. That's quite big, right? And also, we now have plant databases. So these databases records what the plant needs. For example, its preferred soil type, its maintenance requirements, and a lot of different informations. And know what's funny? Plants, just like human beings, needs friends around them for them to grow and thrive. Yes, because we need to admit it, in this world, everything is all about networks and relationships. And we grow wherein there is a positive environment. Correct? So, as well, this is some software application. So instead of manually plotting your design, like this is where I will plant my vegetable, or this is where I would put my kitchen, or this is where I'll put my compost area, we have this software application that will help you plan where you can put your facilities, where you can put your vegetable garden, or where you want to put your food forest. So, I just wanted to emphasize that we can use technology everywhere, and we can choose to use it in a positive way. But furthermore, as I was telling you all, permaculture is not just about relying on technology alone. Permaculture is about being with nature, right? So all the data and the information that we collected needs to be verified and needs to be implemented on hands-on experiences. So these are some of our volunteers, the 10K Heroes United. So this is us on our site. Yes, so this is us connecting the technological world and the natural world. So for us, this is our bridge. This is our bridge, right? So permaculture serves as a bridge between the technological natural world, as well as it develops our character, our leadership skills, and of course it promotes food security, improving health and well-being, and restoring the ecosystem. So it's helpful, right? And for us, this is a great equalizer to all, regardless of creed, origin, age, or gender. And it's amazing because in permaculture, we can experience transformation of heart, which we really do need. So we are now collaborating. As well, we have this solar lamp. So this is our DIY solar lamp because Philippines is a country that experiences a lot of typhoons from A to Z all year round. And once I've experienced like a blackout for 3 months. So in our community, this is really needed. And we have this program to teach young people to know how to do their own DIY solar lamp. So I think this is still part of digital technology because we are using microprocessors, but I will not go deep into that. Maybe another time. Also, we are partnering with our stakeholders. Of course, it is very important to make our works relevant, to partner with those who are in the position. So we are now partnering with the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, as well as we have established political partnerships, crucial political partnerships to work with us. And for this is our goal, so we are now planning to go into the community, adopt one family for like $100, and train them to become permaculturists, for them to have, of course, food security, and to really communicate with nature, to be one with nature, to have this, for us to build this regenerative and sustainable world. And that starts in our own family and our own community. And we are also trying to raise $1,000 per trainee, so more young people that can advocate permaculture and can advocate more about really helping the young people to become relevant, especially this time. And we are planning to institutionalize permaculture, so this is our goal by 2025. I hope then we can all still be together and I can still update to you all of our works. So I would like to leave that as we strive to create a more regenerative and sustainable future, the integration of permaculture principles and digital technology will really play a critical role. But with a holistic approach that values the natural world and embraces the innovative solutions, we can really build a world that is resilient, equitable, and prosperous to all. So I hope that we can work together to achieve that goal. Thank you so much.
Another big wow, right? Thank you, Christine. Okay, here. When I first met Christine, she was the she won the crown of a beauty pageant. She's not just an engineer, but she's also a beauty titleist. And what other combination do we need for a young woman to define empowerment, right? And success. So kudos to you, Christine. Thank you so much. We have, I think, around 15, 20 minutes, but we'd like to spend that time for a short roundtable discussion because we'd like to hear more from our panel of speakers. And if you have questions, we'll try to accommodate that. Those little notepads of paper on your seats, please use that and give it to one of our staff. And then maybe we'll read a couple of those at the end. So to start with, we have actually written down some questions, but the first question was really like covered by your speeches, but just wanting to hear more from your perspectives in your areas of expertise. So the first question is that in the context of our topic, creating an environment of resilience and empowerment in the digital age, what do you think is blocking this path and why? And what are, well, I know you already presented it, what are you doing and what we can do together to overcome these challenges? So we'd like to give chance to every one of our speakers to speak, and then you can ask each other questions and, have a more interactive conversation.
Are these on? I think they're all on. So we actually have these almost comfortable chairs with the idea of with the idea of it being more like sitting around and chatting and discovering new thoughts and ideas together. So that was kind of part of the idea there. So maybe then I'll just start with pulling out along the lines of what Murli was saying. And I would ask another question to Atty and to Adriana. Is there a common ground that you can see that would be the challenge, the short-term challenge, and a longer-term challenge? That's a very generic question, but I suspect you see there are some things that are hitting you right in the face in terms of girls in tech. Addie is still CIO at Hearst Communications, and so is dealing with the gender component in some ways. Short term, and then what are the long term? You did mention some of those, but I think I'd like to hear more.
Thank you so much. As I was listening to the wonderful panelists, I was thinking about this. The tech world is changing, right? And we as tech folk, I think, still have this IT paradox. I call it. We think technology is about hardware and software, and it's no longer about that, right? It's about the change it brings, about experience. It's about data science, right? You said number of women that are coming into data science. It's a convergence of so many sciences coming into one. It's no longer one thing, which is a much more broader education we need to give to women. Say this is not what your parents did. You're not going to be sitting there coding really, because the coding is done with AI. You're going to see a lot of it done. You just have to bring intelligence and compassion and passion and understanding and correlation and causality to this. So I think that's one area where I think we need to focus. The second thing that I think is missing, and really with having a more balanced perspective to design, is responsible innovation. And I always say, there's a difference between correlation and causality. We are getting smarter. And we get smarter with machines. We have better understanding of prediction and correlation. We still don't understand causality. We don't have wisdom. We have data, we have information. We don't have wisdom. And correlation and causality have a huge impact on the way we live, the way the economy is, the way we are organized. So I think those are some deeper philosophical conversations we need to have as tech folks. At Silicon Valley, the practitioners, civil society, governments. And I would end with this, that there's a power shift taking place. Governments have no longer power to protect their civil service, their citizens. They don't have the power. The crime has shifted completely from what the physical world to this virtual world. And as governments lose power, the tech sector can't really manage it either. We have some deep questions to ask around security, privacy, protection, right? Those are dialogues that we don't have. So I just recommend advocacy for not only getting more women into tech, but advocacy to talk about impact from a broader perspective.
Yeah, I thanks for that. I think, there's just, you can answer the question in so many different ways, but what I'm seeing sort of more on the ground is just access to education, and the focus is more on socioeconomically challenged communities, where it's not just lack of access to education in STEM, but it's also access to devices, resources, internet, the infrastructure that is so crucial in order for people to get educated, right? And I would also add that this all has to happen at an early age. Like, Girls in Tech is really focused on university to mid-level career, but this all happens when they're kids, right? K through 12 is when kids are influenced, students are influenced by their parents, by the media, by the teachers, by role models, by mentors. So we all have to up our ante as a society to provide this support and mentorship at an early age. I also think that there is an education that needs to happen to executive people and government entities and leaders that are decision makers, not only in the US, but around the world. And, you know, for example, love him or hate him, the governor of Tennessee, I live in Nashville, actually implemented legislation to require middle schools and high schools to teach computer science classes. Now, this is a lot harder than one would think, because that means you've got to train all of the teachers, or the teachers, or find teachers that teach computer science to this new demographic, and, you know, fit it in between the math and the science, right? And this is a whole new way of learning, a whole new way of teaching. But I think holding those people accountable that can make the decisions, you know, whether it's through education or supporting small, medium-sized businesses, female founders that want to launch companies, products or services, you know, just empowerment in general. I think there has to be education there as well.
And I was just going to add before what you said, Ade, about even causation. There are philosophical discussions about, you probably know well, about whether causation is really a useful way of thinking about things. We think about causation in that way, but when even, I would imagine, we don't have any permaculture specialists in here other than Christine, that when it gets to dealing with such complex systems, which human society is, it becomes irrelevant to talk about causation. It's pinning down the trigger that starts something becomes a question how valuable that is. But that's going off into the ether. But the point there is, I think, there are many discussions that need to be had, both at the highest levels and at the practical, doable levels. So we do have two hands. We've got two sides of our brains. So we have to be thinking all about advocacy and discussions of global agendas and establishing new ways of doing things, as well as taking care of the day-to-day realities of physical life. Because I guess we were going over this quote yesterday, Ready Player One, the real world is still the only place where you can get a good meal. So we still have to deal with that reality on the ground. Yeah.
Did you
respond
so
to this?
I'm thinking about what you said. You know, I think I always use Francis Bacon as a quote. You know, he says the man's pursuit for science is to gain the power he lost at the fall. You know, all our pursuit of science and technology is to understand the reasons, understand relationships, to predict the future. It's almost a religious experience. We strive for that. We want to know the unknowns. And I guess where I was going with causation is that when you don't have, when you do design and you don't have women involved in thinking of the design, there's things you don't think about, which is impact. And therefore things happen that you never anticipated. Then you have to mitigate. And whether you mitigate or not, it's difficult sometimes to mitigate. Always the single combustion engine, right? It was one of the most important innovation. It created suburbia, it created new jobs, factories. But now we're dealing with the climate, which is the result of using single combustion engines in the cars. So if we are there in the responsible design then we can start maybe thinking about these things and still doing it, but planning for it, mitigating. I think with artificial intelligence, what we're going to see is better understanding of what's going to happen and consequences. So that's where I was going with causation. But to your point, we do need this practical. We are still in phase 1 of this. We really need to close this digital gap. The digital gap exists, the digital gender gap on education. You know, I had, give a quick story about a dear Kenyan friend I had who was an entrepreneur, and he was building a commerce system. This was 15, 20 years ago with blockchain. And I said, why are you doing that? He said, you know, my uncle sends me money, sends money to my uncle is in US and sends money to my, my dad here for us to survive. But my mom only gets, out of $10, my mom only gets $1 of it. And the rest of it is spent by my dad for whatever he spends it on, gambling or, you know, cigarettes and things like that. I want to create this app for my mom, so she will get the money directly, right? So she could spend it on food and education and healthcare for the kids. That's why I'm doing this. So I guess where I'm going is that as you think about innovation, and you think about innovating for just women having independence, financial independence, to make decisions for the children, that's just huge. It's huge innovation. That's what we need to support, and we need to, as you were talking about, inspire and make sure we have more solutions like that.
Just to add really quickly on the AI thing, one of the reasons why it's so important that more women, more those who are working for the social good are engaged and are online and are writing stories and are putting data, whatever, because whatever is up there on the web, that's what gets scraped and put through the algorithms for that shape, not the algorithms themselves shape the information that's drawn out of it, but also the raw data that those algorithms are utilizing depend on sources of that information. So part of it is we have to be engaged and better understand, otherwise there's just going to be this very slow, or maybe not so slow, shift that the AI, which is incredibly fast, incredibly smart, absolutely amazing, but it's going to be slanted. It's going to be biased. There's no way around it unless we're there too.
Also, I wanted to emphasize about the question that what's blocking like young women and girls in achieving digital technology. Well, I believe that creating the environment is really very important. So I observed in my experiences that if we put our trust to a body that is in higher ups, we just get frustrated because we don't see results immediately. That's why it always starts within us. The change always starts with us human beings. That's why we are here. That's why we need a common effort in collaboration with the national and local governments, the private sector, the civil society, the academia, and the multilateral organization. So that's why we need to spread, just like everybody said, advocacies, missions to really reach out to these areas that really needs help. So I think that's what I want to emphasize. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, coming in, of course, from my non-expert side on this, I also would just say concerning advocacy, the importance that this advocacy and partnership in promoting young women into these fields includes the families, includes the parents, that they really can, you know, the same way that we talk about it in human rights concerns, you know, that in the migrant family or in the you know, in the refugee family, how important it is that the mother is also promoting the, you know, this kind of balance of power, leadership within the family between the son and the daughter, and kind of demonstrating that in their own relationship between the husband and the wife, the mother and the father. And I wonder, I think another point that is maybe an obstacle. Myself, I went into university in the field of engineering, actually, worked for the Environmental Protection Agency in America, in Texas, and but was so turned off by the work environment, actually, that was all men. And yeah, and anyway, then I went into a completely different human rights area. But one part of it is maybe understanding the difference. If a young girl could understand the difference that she could make if she were in that field, huh? And even I heard, I don't know, maybe it's your successor from the office of the Secretary General who spoke on the first day of the CSW, who just dropped that idea on the audience and said, what if, you know, there was an equal number of men and women in tech since the beginning in designing programs? But I thought, yeah, please tell us more. What would be different? And I would have a question to you if we have a moment to ask you what might be different if actually it started out differently. Yeah.
Well, I think definitely from a product development standpoint, it's just crucial to have not only equal representation of our gender, but also racially diverse groups of people, other marginalized groups like people who are disabled, right, or the LGBTQIA plus community. I think everyone needs to have a seat at the table and help develop products. I mean, it's been proven that, you know, if you have diverse groups of people building and innovating products, then you problem solve faster, you're more creative, you create more comprehensive technologies. You know, I think that is very, very important. I also think in terms of a corporate culture, I mean, we talk a lot about EQ, and that is almost more important than technology itself, right? To be able to feel like you belong, to be able to feel that you can bring your authentic self into the corporate environment, be productive, safe, comfortable, and be able to be creative, right? Like we all thrive in the intersection of skills and passion, right? And if we're able to, if managers, executives, if leaders within corporations are able to foster that union with all of the employees while respecting them, I think that we'd be a much better, not only work environment, but much better society. We'd be happier. There's so many people that are unhappy in the workplace. But they have to go to work, you know, or work from home to pay the bills, right? So I think you'd have a much different society, happier, more productive, I think.
I like to, that's a great question, and what a fabulous answer. I was thinking of when I was a young engineer, I think it was my first report I had to write. I started writing this saying, I feel this is what happened. So I get called into my boss's office, and he's angry. He's like, you're an engineer, you don't feel. You think. I said, but I feel. I feel is much broader. It's intuition, it's rational thinking, it's IQ, it's EQ. There's things I don't understand, which makes me come to that conclusion. It is holistic thinking. And it made me change the word to I believe. So I go there because I still feel. And I think we need to trust in that. If you take one example of electronic waste globally, you know, people who design, and I go back to responsible design, when you design electronics and you decide, I'm going to put lead and mercury in it. And if you had a woman there and the woman said lead and mercury, well, let's think about those things. Should we put them in the electronics? What's going to happen after you throw them out? And maybe someone opens it up. Maybe it's my kid that's going to open it up because my kid is curious. and start messing with lead and mercury, what's going to happen? And then we're going to have billions of these devices around. And so let's think about mercury. It's like calcium. The woman's body absorbs it and gives it to the child. And now what's going to happen to the pregnant woman and the child? And let's take this broader. You really want to put lead and mercury in those things? That conversation never took place. Or if it was 50-50, and a woman who spoke up and said that, we wouldn't have this huge problem of electronic waste, which impacts 70% of women. That's why that Bernardo, when he raised that question, when he said that, if 50% of design was done by women, 50% of problems would go away.
We could listen to this conversation. I mean, this is the type of conversation that we need to be hearing, participating probably all day and throughout the 2-week CSW session. But for the sake of time, actually, we are over time. But I'd like to get, bring you the voice from the floor, which is really important. So I'm gonna put 2 questions together. So we have about 3 minutes. Two questions together. One is, how did you overcome the negative attitudes that a girl should not be in tech or in engineering or in math or in science? And another question says, do you believe soft skills will be more valuable than hard skills in the future? Anyone, please. We have 3 minutes.
I'll just jump in. In terms of belonging in tech, I mean, it was like a salmon swimming upstream. I just didn't belong, and for a long period of time, I'd call it going into man mode, as I climbed up the ladder, going in to present to a room full of men, whether it was at the sort of executive leadership level or at the board level. I would dress differently, talk differently, present differently, not tell jokes, not show up as my authentic self. Even, I'd wear pantsuits. Not that I have anything against pantsuits, but I'm more of a dress girl myself. But, you just shift who you are. And again, the happiness theme, I wasn't happy because I couldn't be myself, right? So I think in that environment, what I would recommend is, one thing that I did was I built relationships, as you were saying, and networked and created my own personal advisory board, which to this day, those people don't know they're on my personal advisory board, but these are people that I respect, that I learn from, that I continue to grow with, that have been so influential in caring about me and my career and my goals. And I recommend that for anybody. It doesn't matter what age you have, but it's like your own personal group of people that you can go to ask these questions, who can build you up and help you if you're down or have a challenge. So that's what I would recommend.
Yes, so in my experience, dealing with the negativity of being in tech, especially in college, wherein most of your classmates are men, right? For me, I got into computer engineering not because I want to do it, but because it offers more opportunities, especially on work, right? So belongingness for me was not the top priority. What helped me is my attitude, because I really wanted to succeed. And being with this group of people, I just thought that I can do this, that I have the power, I have the ability, even though I am a woman, I'm still human, right? All of us still have the same brain. So I always remember what my teacher said. When it comes to math, we call someone who excels math wizard. But how about women who excels in math? What do we call them? Math witch? I don't know. But I don't know. So yeah, I just believed in myself believed in my ability and capabilities. So really shaping your whole self as a human being will really help in dealing with all of these negativities. Just become a ball of positivity and you can share it to others. So that's for me. Thank you.
Soft skills, you're setting me up here. Well, I think to some extent that's been mentioned. You can't say more important because you need both. The soft skills, you know, just like if you're going to build a castle, if you're going to be that witch, no, witches don't build castles. But anyway, if you're going to build a castle, we're talking Renaissance or something, I don't know. You need the stones and you need the mortar. You need the building blocks and you need the things that hold things together. And that the soft skills are what hold us all together. That's part of the way we function, our natural desire for friendship and meaning in our social relations. That's so essential. You don't lose that, you don't check that at the door just because you walk into the business place or just because you start coding. You feel like Addie did, you know, you bring your intuition as well. So more important, less important, neither one, I don't think, as much as you need both, and we need to bring the balance even to our training and education to help us learn to be better at our soft skills, because that's one of the challenges, especially in the tech environment. Oftentimes, many techs go there because they're happier coding, being in their own little world and not dealing with anybody. But they don't make a good manager. They don't make a good person planning and envisioning for the future and working to build the relationships that are needed to make all of that happen. So,
You said it so well. But I would say the word soft skill just bothers me. It does bother me. I think it's a gender-specific word. The hard part is the soft part. Tech is easy. Tech is not hard. And now it's much easier because you buy it and it's done for you. And what we do, at least as CIOs, is people who manage tech, we change organizations. We change economy, we change societies, we change politics. We are changing the way humans live. Used to change it with a hammer and a nail. Now we change it through technology, right? And technology is changing us. It's an effect on both. But the ability to bring about change requires this broad thinking about implications on work, implications on people, implications on economy. You call them soft, I call them the most difficult part of what I do. The soft stuff is the coding. So I think we need to start changing our language,
power skills.
right? And no, we need to change what it is. It's not soft. It's the most difficult, it's the most complex part of what we do is bringing about change. So I just think as we begin to talk about these things differently, I think we start to see change happening.
We need a new word, Addie.
I'll adopt it. You heard it here?
We were just talking about it yesterday, Karen, the soft skills, soft that is hard. And yeah, it's like, how do we do that? But exactly, you said it very well, Ms. Atife, and thank you so much. Yes, as I said, we would like to have this conversation go on, but we are in the constraint of time, and to respect your time as well, we are going to end this program. Before that, I think I'd like Karen to have the last word.
I think the only thing that I was just going to say is one of the reasons why we come here is to connect. So please, I would invite each one of you, before you leave the room, to at least get 3 emails and names, or 4, or 5, or 6 from the other. It's more important that you get somebody else's email when you commit to following up and having an online meeting sometime to find out more about the other and to see the ways in which you can perhaps uniquely collaborate together, or the ways in which you can refer them to some other contact that you have. The networks we build, the way we relate is really important. So before you lock that door, nobody's there to lock the door, don't worry. But please do at least gather at least 3 names and emails. I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So as we close this program, I'd like to thank, and please join me in thanking our wonderful speakers. They shared with us wealth of information, and it opened new mindsets and thinkings and doors of opportunities for everyone. And yeah, thank you all. Thank you for joining us. And what else is missing? A photo. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So our event is not complete without a group photo. How should we do this? Who's our media person here? Okay. Thank you, Shruti. Should we? Okay, that sounds like a plan. All right. Okay, so the camera person, so Karen, so the camera person will be at the back, right? Yeah, and then they turn. Right, for everybody. So, yeah, please come over. Please come over and. Okay, hi Nandi. Okay, please. Yeah, let's.
Outside, and also
Oh, okay. Yes, outside. Okay, let's have one here and then. Okay, please, everyone. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Please. So maybe should we put a picture? Some here. Here. Some people sit here. Yeah, here.